So if you're a writer, you know this struggle, right? You've got all these scenes, dozens, maybe even hundreds of them. How in the world do you connect them all so they become a single, living, breathing story? Well, today we're going to look at a pretty powerful metaphor that might just change the way you see your script forever.
Okay, here's the big idea, and it comes from over 15 years of writing experience. I want you to think of every single scene in your screenplay not as just a block of text, but as a neuron. Yeah, a neuron, an independent, living cell, just buzzing with energy, ready to fire and connect.
And it all boils down to this one idea, something that's been tested over more than 960 scenes. It means each scene, each tiny part, has to contain the DNA of the entire story. And the story itself, the whole thing, is really just the incredible network that all those individual parts create. This, right here, is how a story actually works.
Okay, so if scenes are neurons, that leads to the next big question, doesn't it? How do they talk to each other? What are the synapses? How does that electrical impulse travel from one scene to the next so the audience gets a smooth, coherent experience?
See, the connections are way deeper than just simple cause and effect. It's more structural than that. I want you to imagine these invisible, super taut strings, just pulling every scene tightly to the one that follows. It creates this powerful, unseen nervous system for your entire story.
So let's get really specific here. It's not just one random connection holding scenes together. No, it's actually 3 distinct points of contact. This is basically the blueprint for building your story's nervous system.
These are the 3 anchor points. It's pretty straightforward. You link the beginning of one scene to the beginning of the next one. You link the middle to the middle, and you guessed it, the end to the end. This is what gives the whole screenplay its structural integrity. Let's break down each one.
First up, we've got the initial spark. The very first image or action of a scene needs to be directly and tightly linked to the first image of the next. For instance, say one scene opens on a close-up of a phone ringing off the hook. The very next scene could open on a close-up of a character's panicked face as they pick it up. Boom! You've got immediate continuity, and it just shoots the story forward.
All right, next up is that crucial middle connection. When you link the midpoint of one scene to the midpoint of the next, you're centering the story's breadth. Think about it like this. The middle of one scene might reveal a character's secret fear. Then, the middle of the next scene could show another character who has no idea exploiting that exact same fear. That little echo is what makes 2 totally separate scenes feel like they're part of a single seamless flow.
And finally, we have the foundation. Connecting the last moments of each scene is what gives the film its emotional stability. So if one scene ends with a character making a really tough decision, the next scene could end by showing the immediate consequence of that decision. It creates this really satisfying forward momentum that keeps the viewer grounded in the emotional journey.
So, we've looked at the cells, the neurons, and we've looked at the synapses, how they talk to each other. Now let's zoom out and see how all this comes together to form something much, much bigger. A living organism.
Your typical movie script? It's got around 120 scenes. But with this mindset, that's not just 120 pages of text. That's 120 neurons. Or, as our source material beautifully puts it, 120 short breaths.
And this is the whole point. You take those 120 independent parts, you wire them together at the beginning, middle, and end, and you create something entirely new. It's not a collection of scenes anymore. It's a single, cohesive entity with one name, one identity. Your film.
So, what's the big takeaway here? Well, first, your scenes can be independent little units and part of this bigger connected network at the same time. This structure creates a single, unified body. It guides the audience on a really natural emotional journey, and ultimately, it helps them process and digest the story in a way that feels stable and satisfying.
So, the next time you look at your script, try not to just see a sequence of events. See a network of neurons, a nervous system, a living thing. And then ask yourself this really powerful question: how is my story breathing?